Hi, everybody online. Okay, so let's sit together. So gather yourself into a comfortable posture. Closing your eyes when you're ready. Noticing what's present for you right now. Allow yourself to let go of any rushing or busyness that maybe had to be a part of your day. And take any kind of breaths that will help you to settle into your body. And let your body settle into stillness. And then let the heart follow. Giving yourself permission to be here and nowhere else. Nowhere else to be. No one to be. Nothing to do, nothing to have, nothing missing. And we're going to start our practice tonight with inclining the mind towards forgiveness. My teachers, Sayadaw Uttusana rather, talk about the difficulty of going into meditation practice without forgiveness. So there's this practice that's done, kind of clear the psyche, release the burdens of the heart. For anyone who has knowingly or unknowingly caused me harm, I forgive them freely. For anybody that I have knowingly or unknowingly caused harm, I ask for forgiveness. And then forgiving ourselves, releasing blame, shame, judgment, the inner critic, for all the things that I blame and shame myself for. I offer myself forgiveness. Forgiving everyone, everything. And then letting your breath be natural, feeling the rising and falling of the inhale and exhale. The touch of the breath as it enters and leaves your body. Notice where you feel the touch of the breath, and let this be the home base for your awareness. And when breathing in, know you're breathing in. When breathing out, know you're breathing out. Making a label in your mind, inhaling as you breathe in, exhaling as you breathe out. The mind wanders, noticing the thought without judging, labeling, thinking, or wandering, and gently come back to the breath. Without judgment, tune into the mood of the mind, your heart. Noticing any state of consciousness present, naming the feeling, sleepy or worried or calm or happy, unhappy. Allowing whatever is present for you to be. Let it come, let it go. And always coming back to the breath. This awareness shining a light on your reality as it actually is, not as you want it to be, not as we think it should be, but what is our present moment experience as it actually is, joy or misery, awareness is healing no matter what we observe. watching experience from beginning to end. The inhale at the beginning to the end, exhale. Beginning to end thoughts as they arise and disappear, sound arising, passing away. Awareness meeting each new moment. Unprocessed emotions, thoughts arise as we meditate. They're meant to. Don't oppress anything that arises. But observe that experience directly and with compassion. Grief or sadness or fear. Lingering doubts. We process and release our held emotions in the body through meditation. By allowing them to arise and pass away. I planned to talk tonight, but then I changed my mind while we were sitting. My plan. I do better when I don't plan, anyways. I wanted to talk instead about the joy, the beauty of having a spiritual life or spiritual discipline. The Buddhist practice, for those of you that don't know, is not a dogma. It's not a belief system. It's based in three things: dana, sila, and bhavana. Dana means donation, generosity, service. Sila means ethics, morality, or not harming others. And bhavana means meditation or cultivating the mind. And so there's practices, and the practices are meant to get us to see deep into the psyche and into the heart and to see the nature of this human experience, the nature of reality. And in seeing that, we see that there are things and actions we can do in life that, by the laws of nature, by the laws of the universe, line up and lead to us living a fulfilling and harmonious life. And there's things that we can do that lead to pain and suffering and distress or worry or sadness or whatever. And the Buddha really clearly understood that human beings, having himself been a human being and having kind of a high um, bar for happiness, he lived in worldly happiness as a prince and a wealthy person, having everything that you would want at a time, being a handsome and, all the things, whatever, and not feeling fulfilled by those things. And he wanted to see what else could fulfill him. So he went on a deep quest into his own heart and mind, and then was able to lay out a system. The Pali Canon is 11 times the size of the Bible. And the system is, he had 45 years of teaching after he reached his enlightenment, kind of develop his teachings, which got laid down in written form later on, passed on verbally before that through the repetition of the suttas. But all of the suttas are not, there's not a belief system. There's nobody to worship. There's, the Buddha said, I teach one thing and one thing only, stress and the end of stress, or dukkha and the end of dukkha. Dukkha meaning stress or suffering or dissatisfaction. Like, what is this endless dissatisfaction? What is the cause of it? Why don't I feel satisfied by having all of these things in the world? And he looked deep into the heart to see the wounds that were there for him, and then saw how much that living in a certain way started to bring a kind of fulfillment that the things of the world could not bring for him. I have a deep respect. I grew up Catholic personally. A lot of people look at me like, oh, sorry, when I said, but for me, it wasn't a bad experience. I had good Catholics around. Mean nuns, yes, they were there too, and very sweet nuns and alcoholic priests and all of that kind of, but good people. Mother Teresa's nuns would come and visit the nearby church, who lived in San Francisco, took the vow of poverty. They were lovely. And my grandfather was devout. I found that his Catholic faith didn't help him to always control his impulses in life. Something that mindfulness does do for us. But it did give him a sense of meaning and a reason to do good and to be good in the world. And that kind of structure is very, very, very helpful for us human beings. He would do the rosary. Anybody else grow up Catholic? Anyone? Yeah. Okay. He would do the rosary in his chair in the living room. The rosary, for those of you that don't know, you just say a prayer along the Hail Marys and then Our Fathers. And described having an experience that's very much like a meditative absorption, where he felt a peace coming over his whole body, a peace he had never felt in any other kind of thing that he was looking for in the world. And he called it God, that for him was God visiting him, and really gave him a deep faith in his practice. I just taught a retreat at a Catholic monastery. Some people were there, yeah, or Catholic something, monastery. I don't know if it's the right word, but so those images were really in my head. And I had been reading about the tradition of the monastic tradition, and how did Jesus start the monastic tradition? And Jesus did not start the monastic tradition. And I was comparing the 10 Commandments. Would Jesus reference the 10 Commandments? And interestingly, Jesus referenced the commandments mostly that line up with the 5 precepts of Buddhist practice, and that is to not kill beings. Sadhu Pandita would call these just the basic ethics of human, not more, not less for lay people, not more and not less. Then not killing beings, not stealing from them, not lying to them, not being harmful with your sexual energy, which is well defined within the Buddhist tradition. And then not intoxicating the mind, because it makes all of those other things more easily. So Jesus often talked about those things, but maybe not the intoxicating piece. And another piece he talked more about, which they do in Buddhist traditions too, is honoring your mother and father. So the Desert Fathers were who laid down the monastic tradition in Christianity, and they were around like 300 years after the death in Syria, Egypt. People that went in for contemplative practice in solitude, like Buddhist monks, and they would do prayer, and the prayer that they would do would be very much for the reasons that we practice mindfulness. In fact, they had a practice called nepsis, which is translated as watchfulness. And guess what? Mindfulness is translated as watchfulness. And for the same reason, to watch for the mind going to the dark places that the mind does, which they would call demons, the demons visiting your mind. I love that. I love when the darkness comes to my mind and calling it Satan. I love that. In Buddhism, it's Mara, or the Maras. And in Burma, they really do think of them as beings visiting and corrupting the mind. And I've spent a lot of time, almost 2 years of my life, in deep silent meditation retreats, watching the mind, and came to see that that's not my mind that is doing that. If something comes in and visits the mind. And so we've landed in this existence on a quest. And I have found that the meaning of our life is to bring goodness into this world as much as we can. And to do that well, we have to get clear inside of ourselves about what is goodness and what is not goodness. And that becomes really clear because we can fall along the lines of extreme and be puritanical. The Buddha talked about the middle way, and oppressive in our spiritual practice, and shamey and judgy. And when that happens, then the mind or the culture revolts against that. But if spiritual practice is balanced and it's clear and goodness is coming out of that, then it draws people to it. And people want that. It's beautiful. And all the great teachers, that's really where they were. So traditions and cultures along the way have distorted and ruined the various religious traditions. But they all line up on the same thing, that goodness in this world lawfully leads to well-being and happiness, draws people in, is cohesive, and leads to better, harmonious, happier beings, happier societies, according to the laws of the universe. So the practice that seems to have been in some of the traditions, though, it wasn't this mindfulness, this nepsis or watchfulness of really understanding your own heart. I didn't grow up with that in the Catholic tradition. It seems to have left it in a lot of the Christian traditions or whatever, but it's still very much alive in Buddhism, where one develops wisdom, panya, understanding. And the understanding is, how do things work? The understanding is very, very clearly what is, and it's one of the insights. We're here at Insight LA. That's the purpose of practice, to gain insight into the nature of reality, to the nature of well-being and happiness, to the nature of suffering, and the understanding of what is wholesome and what is unwholesome. This word is kusala, which somebody at the retreat said something that I felt too wholesome, made an image. Was it you? Of apple pie or whatever? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Betty Crocker. Yeah, yeah. And then that's not part of the word, but there isn't a great word to really understand this word kusala, which is skillful, onward leading, beneficial. These are other translations, but they're inner qualities that have within it the understanding that these things lead to well-being. So the Kusala Sutta says, cultivate the good. It is possible for you to cultivate the good. If it weren't possible for you to cultivate the good, I wouldn't tell you to do it. If the cultivating of this good were to lead to pain, I wouldn't tell you to do it. But because the cultivating of the good leads to benefit and pleasure, therefore I say to you, cultivate the good, said the Buddha. And then on the other side, abandon what is unskillful, unwholesome. It is possible for you to abandon what is unskillful. If it weren't possible, I wouldn't ask you to do it. If the abandoning of what is unskillful were lead to pain, I wouldn't ask you to do it. But because of this abandoning of what is unskillful leads to benefit and pleasure, therefore I say to you, abandon what is unskillful. And the right effort in the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path is defined by the effort to cultivate in the mind these wholesome qualities. So if you hear that word, what is the first for you? No right answer. Thing you think of as a wholesome quality. Anybody can shout one out. Compassion, great. Patience, great. Generosity, great. Yeah. Anyone? What's that? Harmony, great. Say it again. Honesty, great. Satya, yes. Loving kindness, good. Okay. So we might think of ourselves as having these things or not having these things. And having so much of these things or not. I'm only so generous. I'm only so patient. I'm only so kind. But what the Buddha is saying is you can cultivate that. We cultivate and practice something every moment of our life. And when we take a spiritual path and a spiritual discipline, it's examining that and taking the actions that will change it in the mind, in words, and then in the body. So we can cultivate and habituate anything. And I kept seeing that as true for me, that when I cultivated these things, when I started to take the spiritual practice and really think about morality and think about the words I was speaking to people as a 23-year-old young person, stopped drinking, I stopped doing all of that. I really thought about what my mind is doing and judging and harming others and not being harmful sexually. I really thought about it, gave it consciousness, and I saw exactly that. That, like, I don't know, it's like the parting of the Red Seas. Life showed up for me a lot more in a lot of different ways. And in a lot of different ways, people responded to me differently. Opportunities came to me. It was just like I was living in harmony with life much more. And so life was living in harmony with me much more. And then those days, those times, those moments, every single day, we fall off the path. We act in a way that we wish we hadn't. And life shows up for us there, bangs us in the head or whatever, little bonk. Like so the Buddha talked all the time about living in tune, in harmony, and practice being like that of an instrument, not too tight and not too loose, but right in harmony with life. And we study internally. You can feel it yourself when you're sitting here and the afflictions come, kilesas, they're called, the psychic irritants of mind. Do you guys have any of those? Regular visitors of a human mind, right? Real regular. Well, we can cultivate them. They come from sustenance of thought. The Buddha said, just as all unwholesome states lead downward, so do all wholesome states lead upward. And they persist and subsist on sustenance and the sustenance of our thoughts. So we sit in mindfulness, like watchfulness of the Desert Fathers. We're guarding the mind from the roads that it will go down, spiral down or spiral up. A moment of mindfulness, you've protected your mind from the afflictions. And we can grow that and grow it and grow it. That's why when you practice meditation, the awareness needs to be clearly connected with whatever object you're observing. It isn't meandering in the mind. It isn't sitting and doing nothing. Bhavana, the word to cultivate, is clearly placing your mind on an object of awareness, because that is a moment of protection for the mind from Satan. Throw that word out if you don't like it. I would have hated that in the beginning of my practice. I love it now. I love it. Okay, so I'll say it this way. Protecting your mind from the negativity. Yeah, just that negativity that comes up, worries, fears, self-hatred. You cannot be aware of the object of meditation, the breath, and be hating yourself at the same time, or cultivating fear, or cultivating worry, or whatever else we do, right? And in fact, my teacher said something that blew my mind on this last retreat that I was on. Sayadaw Utuzane, he said, the moment that you're aware, he was talking about anger, they don't coexist. I always thought of them as coexisting, mindfulness and anger. But the moment that you're aware of anger, it's no longer there. I know it doesn't feel that way, and it doesn't feel that way when it has a lot of momentum, but they don't coexist. You're either mindful or you're angry. So you protect your mind from those negative states. Allow yourself to feel the burn of the negative states because they teach you. How do we feel when we're depressed in the body? How do we feel when we're anxious in the body? Hurts, right? And so that is the direct feedback loop. How do we feel in a state of real compassion in the body? The heart feels open. It's a pleasant feeling. It's direct feedback. You get born as a human, and this doesn't come to anybody. The Buddha said, in as much as you cultivate wisdom and compassion, it will grow, and as much as you don't, it will go away. It gets covered over. So our purpose in life, and something that will bring you great fulfillment, greater than just a material existence, and one should treat it with care and respect and reverence, something to be cherished, something to hold close to your heart. And as much as you do that, will protect you. It will help you. There's a saying that comes from the Pali Canon, the Dharma protects those who protect the Dharma. It's true. And the more you do it, the more that you will see it. And it's a refuge in a world that is so filled with greed and hatred and delusion. It's a refuge for you, a place to rest your weary heart, to lay your head, to go to again and again and again, and it will show up for you. So we're doing it. We showed up tonight. Thank you for your practice, everybody. I'll open it up for questions or thoughts or discussion. Okay, we'll start with Anushka. We need it for the people on the, yeah.
I was actually wondering if maybe you can elaborate a little bit on your take on delusion as something that I find, about the meaning of delusion. Because when we're in some kind of illusion, we don't really know that we are in illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that the translation, the meaning, the commentary of would be that we think we don't understand the nature of reality of cause and effect and
Mm-hmm.
such.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering if there's anything else that you would have to say about that.
Yeah, on a more refined level, your definition is exactly right. Not understand the nature of reality is this word moha, which is a translation of ignorance, ignoring reality, or delusion is another translation of it. And it's, something that is very prevalent and rooted in why we do act in violent or harmful ways. If somebody is acting in a violent or harmful way, or any way that harms another being, it is absolutely from not understanding that this world, that will bring themselves suffering, right? The world is operating according to laws of cause and effect, but delusion is more prevalent than that, and it really is there any moment that we're not present with life when it's happening, which is in the present moment. The mind is always in some kind of fog of a story. Yeah, always in some kind of story. And then as soon as story, there's a craving. And why don't we ever feel fully like relaxed and present with where we are? It's because of that persistent delusion and craving and not paying attention that wires up our nervous system, that makes us never ever arrived where we are, always tumbling into the next moment, this very, very, very persistent state of stress that is our normal reality. So, but there's something that we can do on that. The shining the light of awareness on that delusion helps to settle the mind and ground the mind so that we can arrive and really be fully present. Plan when we need to plan, take action when we need to take action. The mind's doing a lot more than that. Thinking a million gazillion thoughts that we don't need at all. And they're consequential, right? They're like screens before us. They're like in our nervous system. We don't need all of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thank you. Then how do you make a plan about the future without getting caught in delusion? And also, what about really pleasant daydreams or sort of sentimental memories that feel really meaningful to sort of become lost in a way?
Yeah, yeah. The mind is so persistently not in the present moment. If you want to indulge in those things, go ahead and do it. You will, for the majority of your day, be not in the present moment, unless you're intentionally bringing the mind there. Again, it's only there if it's cultivated. So don't worry about that too much. And we have to make plans, and we do that in the present moment. But like I said, the mind is doing much more than that. It's planning and then it's replanning, and it's trying to control and it's worrying. And what's most important is to know the intention from which we are taking actions in the world. And having a daily meditation practice is good to tune into the intentions, but that is absolutely important because that is from what will come into your life is the intention. And if it's wholesome or if it's not wholesome. So we're mindful on a very when you're meditating, for example, let go of your daydreams and those kinds of things. But in your life, you won't be able to, anyways. If you're a monk, maybe they have that kind of aspiration. Mhm.
Nice to see you. Thanks for
Yeah,
coming.
you too, yeah.
So I'm very much an aversive type and then with a little bit of greed. And it was only recently that I realized that there's actually some ways of thinking that I have that are very delusional, especially with regards to beliefs about myself and things that I project on how others see me, very much driven by like pretty severe childhood trauma. But finally labeling that as, oh, those are delusional thoughts was really helpful and freeing in some ways.
Mhm.
But I think because I haven't really kind of related to the concept of delusion much to this point, now I'm not sure, well, how do I label those thoughts as such in the moment? Because once I'm able to see that, even if I don't buy in 100% that those are delusional, it certainly helps to create some space for me to not kind of fall into the trap of believing them. But I
Mhm.
guess, yeah, it's just a Kalesa that I'm less familiar with knowing how to even identify, which I know is part of delusion itself.
Well, it sounds like you did though, huh? By
I
just
have.
calling it delusion, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can call it just thinking, but sometimes being more precise and knowing exactly. And if it felt grounding, then you're probably right in what you're naming it, and you can name it as such. Do you mean in your meditation practice then?
No, I actually don't. I more
Oh.
so mean in my daily life.
Yeah.
Yeah. In meditation, I don't struggle with that so much at all.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you did it. So
I think so. But I guess
yeah.
what's your guidance when people struggle with recognizing their own delusion? I guess maybe that's the question, because
That's-
sometimes I'm able to see it, and I think part of delusion is you don't see it, right?
Yeah. There was a quote on that. I don't know if I'd be able to remember it. No, I can't remember it. It's a good one and it hits this perfectly, but I'll mess it up. It's constant. So you cannot, it's just constant. The mind is in stories about something constantly and it's making up. Do you guys relate to this at all? Like suddenly you're driving, you just like start imagining something and you get into a fight with somebody in your man, like a whole reality happened in your mind and you're feeling it. You get all the same feelings as if it is happening, or it's a fantasy or it's a this, and then the next moment it's a something else. This is the mind and it's the mind constantly. All of that is delusion. And it's constant, it's constant, it's constant. And you don't have to, delusion isn't bad. It's just not reality, right? It's a dream. The mind's in a state of a kind of dream. And it's a consequential dream because we experience it. And it puts a psychic weight on it because we're living all these like non-reality realities in our mind. We went through this whole thing all day long and nothing actually really happened. So many fights, so many like terrible things, so many deaths happened in the mind that didn't happen, but we lived all of them. And so that's a burden. So that's why we feel heavy. If we didn't do that, we would be a lot more humorous, joyful, light. If we took care of our business and only our business that was our business, this mind, this job, this task at hand, that's what mindfulness is. That's what the Buddha taught. That's what liberation is. Liberation from all of that. So um, monks live the way they do because that makes it a lot easier. They own 2 robes. They don't have to make their food. Somebody else does the cooking for them, whatever. They shave their heads. They don't even have to do that. It's like bare minimum stuff because those are the conditions that really help to live that way. But he also taught us lay people who are busy in the world, and we can begin to bring these qualities in, let go of things that are not as important, and live along a spiritual path, bring love and harmony into the worlds, into our families, into our workplaces. And it's fulfilling. And yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Good to see you. Jasmine back there, do you see?
Hi.
Hi.
So the thing you were saying about your teacher talking about anger and mindfulness not coexisting. I was watching a talk from Joseph Goldstein online, and he was saying exactly the same thing to an audience member.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about this earlier today because it's something I've struggled with a lot to understand, because I think the reason people believe this is because like anger is characterized as a type of aversion and mindfulness is a type of awareness that doesn't have aversion in it. But what I'm struggling with is trying to understand, like, does that apply to other emotions? Like, is it also like,
Yeah, that's what I said to him too. He said everything. I was like, everything of my body. I didn't get to ask more questions, but best place to see this is within one's own practice. Because and when you practice and get really quiet, what you start to see is the moment you're aware of something, it's gone already. When we're looking at things at the molecular level, which is what we do when we're practicing, sounds are broken up into like many different individual pieces, feelings in the body, anger is not just anger. It's here as a solid thing. It's the mind saying things, a thought that are, and feelings in the body that are corresponding with that. So when you look at things on the molecular level, you see a moment of mindfulness. Then when you're aware of something, it's already gone. And so the awareness is there, the anger is not there. That's why everything is true. But the way mindfulness is, it's not continuous, not for anybody. It's not continuous. It's not that moment, that moment, that moment, that moment. So there's mindfulness, and then there's these thoughts that are still making that feeling of anger happen for us in between. But this is why within the Burmese training, which is very disciplined and thorough, is to watch things beginning all the way to the end, beginning all the way to the end, because all of those moments then you're blocking out and protecting the mind and the heart. So it's fascinating. Best not to try to think about it too much. Though thinking about it can be fun for a little while, but then go right into your meditation sit and then see whatever arises. It's true for all mind states. So it can be any mind state that you're feeling calm and happy. It's the same, whatever. You'll notice it more with the painful mind states, anger being one of the most painful mind states. But any afflictive emotion, then once it's there, once mindfulness is there, that's why it's a guard. So this awareness is. But okay, so why? Do you guys meditate and feel calm afterwards? Feel better? Okay. And why? Why? It just maybe. Then practice more clearly, because if you don't, then you have to clarify your practice. Okay. Why do we is precisely because we are not feeding those kilesas. That's exactly why. So if your attention is just kind of like this with the object, then really the mind is going to look for something to pay attention to. Psychologists say, I've been saying this all the time. Sorry if you've heard me say it a million times, but psychologists say 80% of the time the mind goes negative, 80% of the time. So in a half hour, that means you got somebody do 80% of 30, please. 24 minutes of negativity. Did I do that right? Yeah. 20. Breaking it down that way is like, oh my God, it's so true though, isn't it? Well, in my experience, it's true. So in a half hour, 80% of the time, 24 minutes of negativity. But when you meditate, you've guarded the mind from that. And it doesn't matter. It can be a mantra. It can be a prayer. It's when the mind is holding on to anything that is not afflictive, then it gets guarded from that negativity in the mind. So that's why in the absence of the negativity is this natural luminosity, this natural calm. So guarding the mind is essential as much as we can. And then I said to my teacher on this one, I was like, so you mean all the time we have to do this? And he said, yes. I'm like, here and out there. He said, yes. I'm like, all right. Okay, I thought so. It's a lot. In as much as we do it, we will, have happiness. We do it a half hour a day. It really changes things in our life. Do it for an hour a day, whatever, more change. Yeah. Did you have a follow-up? No. Okay. Thank you. We going now?
I used to be pretty arrogant about my practice. I remember during COVID being able to put in an hour plus a day. And I'm working more now, which is good, but that means less time to practice. And I'm finding when it comes to trying to guard the mind or be able to pick up when you're falling into the negative mind states and then successfully extract yourself, depends on depth of concentration. And the busier I get, the harder I'm finding to get any kind of decent depth of concentration unless I have the luxury of taking an afternoon off and doing nothing but sitting.
That's right.
Any suggestions?
Become a monk.
I've heard that.
You know, there's probably some things we can let go of. If clarity is what you want and concentration is what you desire, and, you know, simplicity is what you, moving towards simplicity does help to support concentration. Social media is the opposite of concentration. If we're cultivating that for, I don't know, what is your guys' screen time per day? 3 hours. That's probably some time you could spend concentrating instead, which would be of benefit. Yeah. There's things, of course, one we can all let go of if you find and you want to and you're inspired to. Not because you should, but always because why do we do this from the faith that it will bring us benefit? That's the best reason to do something. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close with loving kindness meditation. I wanted to share that something that I discovered right before. AI has been a really great tool for me for Dharma talks because, like I said, the Pali Canon is 11 times the size of the Bible. And for me to like dig into it is nearly impossible to find a topic that I want. So I can ask AI to just go there and say, tell me what you find in the Pali Canon about this or about that. I have long conversations with Grok about this stuff, and it's amazing. I can't even believe what it's able to filter out. And so that's one good thing. I don't know if we're all, you know, gonna die because of AI or whatever, but or there's I don't know. I don't know what the bad things that are coming from it, but there's a positive. And we were talking about Pali, and there's a Sabe Sata Bhavantu Sukhi Tata means may all beings be happy. Sabe, all, Sata, beings or creatures. Bhavantu, to be. Sukhitata, a state of well-being or happiness. And then, so I knew Bhavantu, was looking at that. Bhavana is the word for meditation in Pali. Bhavana is translated not as meditation, but as cultivation. So I asked if this root was the same, to be, bhavana, to be. And it is, which is quite different. So the word for meditation has a state of beingness in its meaning in the Pali language. So when we practice mindfulness, the state of being aware more than cultivating awareness. It feels very different to me, huh? Cultivating and being are two different words in English. Don't you think? Yeah. So that was interesting. So a state of being aware, and then a state of being metta bhavana, which is what we'll practice now, a state of being kind or in a state of loving kindness. Yeah. So let's do that. Being or becoming. Bhavana. What are we being or becoming moment to moment is the deep introspection of our meditation practice. The Buddha emphasized appamada, another word that I really love, which means kind of a thorough conscientiousness. How do my thoughts, words, and actions really affect my life? Thoroughly observing what we eat, how we spend our time, what are the qualities of our mind, how we ruminate in the mind, even on these subtle levels. And then we can choose. The moment of mindfulness gives us a choice. Go down that path or that path. And now going down the path of a powerful and beneficial state of consciousness, metta, goodwill, loving kindness. Extending this to yourself. Letting go of the ways that you judge yourself, letting go of the ideas of the things you think you need to be happy for now. And purely wishing yourself safety, health, happiness, and peace. May I be safe, healthy, happy, and peaceful. Extending those thoughts to those who are close to you in your life, your partners, parents, children, friends, family. As these beings visit your mind, see them happy, safe, healthy, peaceful. May my friends and family be safe, healthy, happy, and peaceful. Just as we wish to be happy, so do all beings want to be happy and peaceful. Sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata. May all beings be well and happy.